the main source that you want to pull to have effective leadership from is definitely God's truth and God's wisdom. Because with that, it's always going to be holistic. It's always going to be fundamental. It's always going to be full circle. There's not going to be a stone that's unturned, as far as navigating your decision processing. God's going to take into consideration everything.
You'll be my forever friend. This love will never end. No, nothing can come between us.
The question that I pose for you guys tonight is, I took it from what she says from this video, so I'm gonna play it for you guys again and let me know what your thoughts are, and then I'll come back.
It's different walks of life.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. I don't see it as me trying to find this faith in the same way. I just think that the way that I apply certain principles in my life is just a little bit different than yours, and that's just not led by a specific God per se,
And just to kind of add on to that, like, I think it was our very first date. And considering my choice, that was one of the first things he asked me, like, did you believe that a man can lead without God? And it threw me a loop a little bit. Like, I really thought, like, I don't even want to say thoughts. It's not, no. I dwelled on that for about a week. And it was like, it wasn't to make, you feel away or anything like that. But it was just like, okay, that was enough for me to know where he is and where he needs to go. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, think of it from this perspective. Like, if I'm praying and, like, staying in my prayer bag and trying to uplift you and things like that, like, when you may be in your darkest moment, I'm going to God. So it's like, if that moment happens where I may not be able to pray for you and keep you up, like, can you do that for me? So it was like, okay, if you believe that, that you can lead without God, like, how could that possibly be possible? And that was where the kind of decision was kind of made from there.
I can see that. Okay.
I respect it.
First of all, I thought that the question that he asked was absolutely profound. And I know he particularly asked her that because of their particular situation, because here he has this interest in her, but knowing that, right, that they have this almost like, big river in between them, because she believes one thing and he believes the other. And so, of course, leadership, clearly, him asking that question is showing that leadership is very important for him, right? And so him asking that question is wanting to see if she, I guess, would be in a position to where he can still be, as a man, a leader in the relationship, even though he does not believe or serve God in the way that she does. So I thought it was a great question for their particular situation, but I think overall, that's a really good question to ask. Definitely coming from a man. I'm just thinking, if I was in, the single space, in the dating space, and a man asked me that, I would be very impressed. That would be a question that definitely would stop me in my tracks, because I don't know if it's a question that is asked often, and definitely as a woman would be a very reflective question, to cause me to reflect and answer. That would show, right, where not only do I stand on whether I believe in a relationship dynamic that men should lead, and two, how do I believe they should lead, and where they're pulling their strength from to do so. So I thought that was a phenomenal question. That's why I brought it to you guys tonight, because I really appreciated his directness and him wanting to actually just dive into it and kind of sift out to see if this could be an actual match that would, really work, rather than waste their time. So I loved it for their particular situation. But again, I think it's a great question. So if you are single and you are navigating that space, whether you're a man or a woman, I think it's a great conversation piece to open up. And so, so guys, let me know. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on her answer? I loved her answer. I really loved how she answered that question. To me, it reflected that she really did not reflected, it exemplified that she reflected wholeheartedly on what he asked her, and definitely she definitely stood, 10 toes down on what she believes. I think we've seen it throughout history where there have been men who have tried to lead without the guidance of God. And when we try to just lead from our own strength and our own logic, or let our emotions lead, oftentimes it's not a holistic vision. Sometimes we have to step outside of ourselves and push aside our selfishness to kind of even get into a state where God can pour into us and put us in a place where we're considering more than just ourselves. And if you're not being led by God, then most definitely there will be, you're going to be either led by the devil or your own negative devices that are only going to overtake you, as well as unfortunately lead people in the wrong direction as well, and add, unfortunately, onto hurt, pain, and suffering that they can experience, as well as yourself. You think that people are doing things and people are leading, and people are acquiring power without necessarily submitting, or they think they're not submitting or following anyone because they're above the law or above certain things, just because whether their influence, their power, their money, etc. But you realize that it's not true, because there literally is fundamental truths, fundamental principles, a system that no matter how hard people try to override it, you're not going to be able to, So let me, I see some comments coming in, so let me stop and read those comments because I appreciate you guys taking out the time. All right. Justin says, absolutely not. I love it, okay? I love the energy that just came through with the typing. Absolutely not, okay? I love it. You can't love without God. Come on now, because God is love. If you don't have God, you can't lead effectively. I love it. I love all of it. I'm going to pin it because the energy on it is great. Because he put effectively in capital letters, okay? Let it be known. Because whose voice will you follow? Come on now. Absolutely not. You cannot love without God, because God is love. Let me read it again. If you don't have God, you can't lead effectively, because whose voice will you follow? Either your feelings or your God. Say that for the people in the back, Justin. Say it for the people in the back. I love it. I love the energy on it. All right, Maya says, facts. There are only two kingdoms, and you can only serve one, which means you're always serving one. Absolutely. Justin says, the heart is deceitful above all things. It's desperately wicked. Who can know it? Your heart will trick you into out of everything. When I follow your heart, I believe I'm reading that. Am I reading right? When I follow your heart, maybe he means you. When I follow your heart like society say do, then why? You are misled and steered in the wrong direction. Okay, I believe what he's saying is like, when you follow your heart like society says, you'll be steered in the wrong direction. Absolutely. And I love what, both you and Maya, kind of tag teaming on this, are saying, because, and that's why I say you can lead. But like I said, not effectively, but there are two kingdoms. As much as we think like our strength is coming from ourselves, it's not. My husband has this analogy, and I absolutely love it, where he'll talk to our nieces, nephews, our own children, and things like that, and he'll show them an empty water bottle or some kind of bottle, right? But let's just say it's a water bottle right now, and he'll ask them, "Is this bottle empty?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, it's empty because there's no water in it." And he's like, "No, it's not empty. There's air in it. There's something there." And so oftentimes if people say, I don't believe in God and things like that, and they just think that, I don't know, they're not going to be influenced by, I guess, God's wisdom and things like that, and that maybe they're only going to use their own logic to kind of navigate this journey in life, when that's not true. We're always being influenced by something. Like, your strength does not come from yourself. You already know that because your whole life is governed by a heartbeat that you can't control. I say that in my book when I wrote my book, 7 Stages of Love and Relationships, right? So a heartbeat you can't control is literally what is helping you navigate your life, right? And amongst all the other systems that are both seen and unseen, that is helping to sustain our life. So, yeah, that person can lead and oftentimes lead people in to the pits, into experiencing life in a traumatic way, because the source that they're extracting their strength from, unfortunately, is not of God's kingdom or His wisdom. So a lot of times it'll be like exactly what Justin said, that their emotions that are supposed to be transient, right, phases that we go through, and actually an honorable experience to be able to experience a lot of emotions in a lifetime, but always filter those emotions through God's truth. Without that, then yeah, they'll be driven by their emotions, and those emotions will take them over. But let's be clear, the emotions that come, especially the ones where if they come and we hold on to them rather than let them be something that is supposed to be transient and pass and help us to learn whatever lessons that we need, without the filtering through God's wisdom, then man, those things are definitely going to be fueled by the other kingdom, right? What you want to call the devil, your negative vices, and those things will have their day of reckoning, and be able to, unfortunately, manifest in your life. People who are not used to leadership, true leadership, I'll say, and people who might not have had some type of relationship dynamic in their life where they've had some type of authoritative figure over their life, and they were able to receive from that person, they were able to engage and learn and grow, etc. Sometimes you see leadership, especially in this current culture, people sometimes synonymously like misconstrue leadership and literally think like dictatorship, like this is a person who's the leader, just tell me what to do, and that's just it. And that's really not the truth. It's a very how can I say this? For lack of better terms, words right now that I have, is just a very small-minded way of viewing true leadership. If you've ever been in the midst of someone who is exemplifying true leadership, you know that a lot of their leadership is coming from their servitude and their demonstration of being able to primarily, one, work through their own challenges and predicaments in life and gain strength and character skills from it that they can then either articulate to someone else or continue to demonstrate to them. And you know that the leader is someone who is serving at a greater capacity. That's why in the Bible it says, let the greatest among you be the servant, right? But if you aren't used to, right, and for many of us, if we weren't brought up, especially in households where the men were taking out, or the father wasn't there, we're not used to it, So it can come off, or we can perceive it in a way where it's this one way type of funnel or flow where someone's just telling me what to do and I have to do it. There is an aspect of that, right, where leadership is delegated, like what a leader delegates, like what Nikhil said, but it's not the only thing. And the person, like he said, who is delegating knows that they don't know everything. That's why good leaders always surround themselves with people who have certain expertise, who are more astute in certain things that they're not, so that they can, right, pull from them. At the center and core of what we talk about here is the fundamental principles of God, and using those fundamental principles to guide our relationships, because unfortunately many people have just been either taught to believe or have the misunderstanding that it's kind of like to play Russian roulette with their life when it comes to especially their intimate relationships, and just do whatever works for you and unfortunately, that sets a lot of relationships up for failure because there's no other system in life where it says that. It doesn't say high school, just do whatever works for you. No, there's certain rubrics, there's rules, there's a systematic order that you have to follow. And if you don't follow that, then you're not going to get whatever the reward is or the result of growth is at the end, right? Whether you're going to a career, you're learning a skill or a trade, there's always order and structure. There's always systematic things in step-by-step order that you follow to get to the other side of it. And I don't think it's any different in relationships. I do think that if we can talk about things like what you're saying, which is very true, that we would definitely have to come to a fork in the road. And the idea is for us to work together and be in harmony. So it's going to be very hard to do that if we're not both on the same page. So I agree. So don't ever feel sorry coming in here talking the truth. I will only praise the truth, not deny it. He also said God will ask a real leader to do something that he may not necessarily desire to do. And that person will have to put their feelings aside and go the direction beyond the way they feel. Say that again for the people in the back. It's very true, especially in a society and a culture right now where seek your own happiness, right? Like we are so liberal and we're so stuck on finding happiness as if the way to fulfillment is through happiness, and that's not true, right? Because you're right, in many situations of real demonstrative authentic love, that you will be presented sometimes with guidance, right, from God, and things that you have to do that, man, you have to stretch way beyond your emotions and your feelings to be able to surrender and submit to doing that, because it might come with a lot of sacrifice. It might come with maybe some feelings of suffering for a moment, for the greater good. So I completely agree. And he said, so can I lead a woman, a church, or a team without the leadership of Christ? If I have no true direction, no. God will make you push beyond hurt systems and preferences. Yeah. And I think here's the thing, right? Unfortunately, that's where you see, right, the breakdown, either in culture or society, where you do have people who are in leadership, right, who aren't following God. And we know, and that's why I said you can, but can you do it effectively? Will you see the fruits of God in it? No. But we know that even in the Bible and scripture, you have people who were leading, but they were not being guided by God, right? Whether it's Pharaoh or other people in the Bible who were completely rebellious and resistant. Now, don't get me wrong, right? Like God is the hub over everything. And in any moment when he wants to step in place and do things and switch it around for his glory, it will be done, at any moment. But we do see, right, that there are people. P. Diddy is a very, right now, in your face example of that, of someone who was put in an influential, powerful position. But clearly, right, to do certain things that just the little glimpse that we saw, right, that's what we saw. So, it's hard to watch what you saw. So, that there was a lot more going on behind the scenes. But clearly, that person is not being directed by the fruits of the Spirit or the fruits of what God, how God's love is demonstrated through leadership, basically, right? How God's love is demonstrated through leadership to another person. So, yeah, no, not effectively. And will it come to, like I said, it will have its day of reckoning, and it will come to a certain demise, and the fruit of it will be the opposite of the fruits of God's nature and his spirit and his light and his love. Yeah, but we've seen it through history that people have definitely climbed to, I guess, this world would, define as greater heights, and have literally acquired people who have followed them, even in their rebellious nature against God and against, what love should really exemplify. And Justin said, and those kings never reigned the amount of time they could have, right? God. When I read the book of Kings, it says it in most scriptures, and so do what was right in the eyes of God, and he reigned so many years. Absolutely. And there's so many people going through so many things right now, whether it's, you know, high cost of living, inflation, things like that. And, again, as I said, we can become very inundated by the negative news that we see in life. And there are so many people who can, fall into a space of hopelessness, thinking that justice is not, right, going to reign, or we're not going to see justice, or things won't change and things like that. And that's because if we're going by our own barometer of when we feel, right, or when we think it should come to light, that's not necessarily our place, and it's hard. It's a hard place to be in, where you feel like if you're looking at something that is clearly in your eyes and firmly in truth is injustice, and if you're not getting that justice back, you start to think, a lot of people start to not have hope anymore. Well, listen, what is in the dark will come to light, and you will have people who may think, right? Men who think that they can lead without God. But we're seeing that that's not truthful, right? Because and if they do, right? And I'll say this, like this. Whether they feel like they've been convinced that they can lead without God, they're not leading without any type of influence, right? And because we know there's God's kingdom and there's the devil's kingdom, there's really no in between kind of pathway. When you lead without the wisdom of God or without the truth of God, then inevitably, right, it's going to come to your own demise, and you're also going to, unfortunately, again, lead people not into, right, the right mind state, or having the most beneficial experiences in their life, but unfortunately add trauma to their life. For us to grow, for us to follow, for us to lead, we have to be able to pull from something, right? We have to pull from some source, and the best source to do that from is to be led by God, because the truth, right, will be there to lead you, and it won't lead you blindly, and it won't lead you to where you fall off, a cliff, or you fall into a pit that you can't get out of. It's only going to make you better, and it's only going to let you lead in a way that, not only positively impacts your life, but also impacts others in a great way, and puts them in the proper direction. So I think, just to recap for tonight, I definitely think that the quote that we said is true, that the greatest leaders are always the greatest followers, and that he who cannot follow most definitely cannot lead. And the main source that you want to pull to have effective leadership from is definitely God's truth and God's wisdom. Because with that, it's always going to be holistic. It's always going to be fundamental. It's always going to be full circle. There's not going to be a stone that's unturned, as far as navigating your decision processing. God's going to take into consideration everything.